month officially as of today for this new presidential term. And what the data says, sort of broadly, bottom line, is that the country kind of hates this guy. Yeah, I shouldn't say hate, it's not the right word, it's not a nice word. Maybe it's can't stand him. Or maybe I shouldn't characterize it at all. I'll show you the numbers. I will say we probably should have seen this coming. I didn't necessarily believe that it was coming this far, this fast, but right out of the gate, Gallup did polling just after the inauguration. They did their first poll on public opinion of Trump in this second term, starting immediately after the inauguration. Literally, they had their first poll in the field the first full day Trump was in office, the day after he was sworn in. That is the definition of the honeymoon period, right? That's when you are at your high water mark in terms of what people are expecting from you and hoping for from you. But in that first Gallup poll of this presidential term, sort of shockingly, Trump was already underwater. In his first week in office, more Americans disapproved of him than approved of him. I mean, only by 1 point, but still, that's unheard of. That's a more than unusual thing in presidential polling. Gallup, in fact, said at the time that in the 70-plus years they have been doing presidential polling, Donald Trump is the only president for whom his approval ratings were underwater right at the start of his term in office, meaning more people disliked him than liked him. So in that first week Gallup poll, Trump was underwater, 47 approving, 48% disapproving. So that means he was coming in at -1. And like I said, that was something we haven't seen with any other president. And to me, actually, it was shocking enough that I didn't think it would stand. I thought that would be sort of an outlier. But now look at this. Gallup just did its follow-up poll, now 1 month into Trump being back in office, and his numbers have gotten worse. He's not -1 anymore. Now he's -6. Which makes him, at this point in his term, not only the most disliked and unpopular president in 70-plus years of Gallup polling, Gallup says it actually puts him 15 points below the average polling for presidents. Again, over the last 72 years in which they have been doing this polling. At this point in a presidential term, 1 month in, the average is 15 points higher than where Trump is right now. Nobody has ever started off a presidential term this poorly in the eyes of the American people. I mean, all presidents are above water at this point in their presidencies, right out of the gate. Trump's the only one. Trump was underwater with the American public from day one, and since then, he's been sinking like a cinder block in an ocean trench. I did not know to expect that. To be fair, part of the reason I'd expected that Gallup number might go up and not down is because Gallup's not the only game in town. There were other national, well-regarded quality polls that came out right at the start of Trump's term that did show him in positive territory. Not big positive territory, but still positive. Like, for example, the Quinnipiac poll, which came out in late January, right after Trump was sworn in, it showed Trump doing okay. I mean, not great. But in that poll, he was above water. He was +3. But now, though, again, 1 month in, that same poll, Quinnipiac, it's flipped. He has gone from +3 in his first week in office to -4 now. That is a quick turnaround for a poll that initially looked okay for him less than a month ago. It looked okay for him, now it looks terrible for him. Why is that? Well, it's because Trump's been doing stuff. And what the data shows is that almost every single thing he has done is soundly and clearly, and in some cases, wildly unpopular with the American people. Again, just look at that Quinnipiac poll that shows Trump underwater right now. More Americans disapproving of him than approving of him, right? He was +3 right after he got sworn in, now he's -4. You can see in the intervals of that poll a little bit about what's driving that. Do you approve of Trump's handling of foreign policy? No. Do you approve of Trump's handling of trade? No. Do you approve of Trump's handling of the federal workforce? No. Do you approve of Trump's handling of the Russia-Ukraine conflict? No. Do you approve of Trump's handling of the Israel-Hamas conflict? No, 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 no. Do you approve of Trump's handling of the economy? No. No, the American public does not approve of his handling of the economy. And stick a pin in that one, because that one's interesting for a number of reasons, and we will come back to that. But you take a look at the broad areas of responsibility a U.S. president has. And on all these broad points, the American public just says, no, Donald Trump, we do not like the way you are handling any of these issues. And then when you drill down, not just to, you drill down from the broad categories of things to instead the stuff he wants you to focus on, the very specific things he's done, his signature specific issues and his signature gambits thus far since he's been in office, the stuff that he thinks makes him look great. Well, those things are even worse than the broad categories. On those things, the stuff he's doing is catastrophically unpopular. I mean, look at this. This is from the same poll. Do you like Donald Trump's genius idea for Gaza? By a 40-point margin, the American people are against Trump on that. How about DEI, which they've tried to turn into a slur? Do you think policies focused on increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace are a good thing? The American people say, yes, actually. Yes, actually, we do think that's a good thing. By a 15-point margin, Americans are for that. How about tariffs? Donald Trump's favorite thing, right? Do you think Donald Trump's tariffs will help the U.S. economy or hurt it? By an 11-point margin, the American people say his tariffs will hurt the American economy, not help. How about Vladimir Putin? All right, this is one of the most important things that Trump has done since being back in office. You know, Trump's sitting there in the Oval Office telling reporters, yes, I trust Vladimir Putin, as he throws out 70-plus years of our post-World War II alliances and decides that now we're going to be allied against Europe and with Russia, all because he trusts Putin so much. Well, Quinnipiac polled on that specifically. Quote, do you think the United States should trust Russian President Vladimir Putin or not? 81% of the American public says not. Not. But Trump does. The same national polling shows the American public do not approve of Elon Musk. Individually, Elon Musk's approval is -12. But everybody else in his government is underwater. The American public has apparently seen enough already to be against, to be disapproving more than approving of not just Elon Musk by a mile, but Trump as well. And also J.D. Vance is underwater, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the brainworm podcast guy who's now U.S. Health Secretary, and Tulsi Gabbard, who really is the Director of National Intelligence, believe it or not, and Kash Patel, who was confirmed today as FBI Director. All of them are underwater in the new polling. The American public does not like any of them. Not a single one of them is above water. Nobody who they polled on is above water in the Trump administration. And it's not just Quinnipiac. Look at the polling on Elon Musk in the new CNN poll that's out today. By a 2-to-1 margin, Elon Musk, having this prominent role in the administration, is seen by the American people as a bad thing. 2-to-1 against his prominent role in the administration. In the new Washington Post poll, which we're going to talk about in a second, they've got an Elon Musk question as well. Are you concerned about Elon Musk in his government role gaining access to your personal data and information? The American people say, yes, yes, we are concerned about that, by a 29-point margin. Elon Musk being somehow empowered to shut down federal government programs, is that a good thing or a bad thing? By a 2-to-1 margin, the American people think that is a bad thing. In today's CNN poll, overall, Donald Trump is underwater by 5 points. In the new poll from Pew Research, Donald Trump is underwater by 4 points. In the new poll from Reuters, Donald Trump is underwater by 7 points. In the new poll from the Washington Post and Ipsos that's out today, they've got Trump underwater by 8 points. All of this absolutely historically unprecedented. No president has ever come out of the gate with numbers like this ever before. And it is across the board. But, you know, on that Washington Post one, look at this. Look deeper into that. They've got a -8. Look, the proportion of Americans who are strongly for him is 27%. The proportion of Americans who are strongly against him is 37%. So yes, your perception, your anecdotal perception is correct. He does have a small, fervent base of support, but the base of fervent opposition to him is much larger, like 10 points larger. The same poll also asked, do you want the next Congress, the Congress that's going to be elected next year in the midterms, do you want that Congress to be controlled by the Democrats to act as a check on Trump, or do you want it to be controlled by the Republicans to support Trump's agenda? By a 13-point margin, the country says, Democrats, please, we would prefer the Democrats to be in charge in the next Congress. In the Washington Post polling, do you support Trump banning transgender people from the military? No, by 11 points. Do you support Trump laying off large numbers of federal workers? No, by 19 points. Do you support Trump shutting down USAID? No, by 21 points. Do you support Trump pardoning people convicted of violent crimes related to the attack on the Capitol on January 6, 2021? Do you support Trump's pardon of people convicted of violent crimes on J6? What do you think the number is going to be on that one? The answer obviously is no. The American people do not support that, but the proportion of Americans who say that is 83%. That was his first major act upon taking office as president. 83% of the public disagrees with it. That's a bad plan in politics. Trump started off this term in office with less of the public approving of him than any other president has ever measured in modern polling. Since then, everything he has done has made the public dislike him even more strongly. And the things he went out of his way to do first, and the things he crows the loudest about, are the things the American public likes the least. So the stuff that he's decided to make the biggest deal out of, to like hitch his wagon to make his presidency all about because he thinks the public loves it, the public hates that stuff the most. And you know, I mentioned the economy. I said stick a pin in that. There's something interesting there. Whether or not you think the economy is the most important thing in the country, whether that is what, you know, floats your boat, we have learned the hard way, right, about the distance between what Americans think about the economy and how the economy is actually doing. I understand. So I understand there's a lot of feelings about polling, about the economy, and what that means for politics. But in Donald Trump's history as a political figure, one thing he has been able to bank on is a perception, reality-based or not, that he knows what he's doing when it comes to the economy. Right? This is the whole billionaire vibe, right? Oh, he seems so rich, so therefore he must be good with money. It's never felt to me like somebody who buys golden toilets is the obvious choice for a good steward of money. But what do I know? That said, look at what's going on with Trump and specifically the perception of whether he knows what he's doing or not on the economy. I mentioned in the Quinnipiac poll, when Americans were asked, do you approve of Trump's handling of the economy? The answer was no. He's -4 on the economy. Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy. CNN specifically asks, has Trump done enough to reduce the price of everyday goods? 62% of the public says no. Even among Republican-leaning voters, specifically, a majority of Republican-leaning voters say Trump is not doing a good job on bringing prices down. In the Washington Post, do you approve or disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy? Disapprove. He's -8. That is the worst number he has had on the economy in that poll since the first year of his first term in office in 2017. Look in the Reuters poll, the number of voters who approve of the job he's doing on the economy is only 39%. That's lower than they have ever recorded for him in that poll, including all of his first term. Asked specifically if people approve of his handling of prices, of the issue of inflation, the Reuters number is even worse. 32% approval. That's an absolutely disastrous number for somebody who has done everything he can to try to make American politics all about prices and inflation. And again, you may not think that prices or voters' perception of the economy or voters' feelings about the president's handling of the economy are the most important things in the world. That may or may not be what drives your own feelings and motivations when it comes to politics. But you know what those things do? They keep every politician who has to run for re-election up at night, all night, every night. Because perceptions on the economy and general approval/disapproval numbers, those are the closest things we've got to something that is determinative to political careers in American politics. And I can hear you through the TV. I can't see you through the TV. I could lie and say that I can't. But I can get the vibe from here. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, yeah, Maddow, sure, okay, that's all well and good, provided we're ever gonna have another election. I know. It is physically impossible to outflank me when it comes to pessimism as to what the Trump movement has in mind for our country. I am right there with you on that. But you know what? I am not thinking here about 2026. I'm not even thinking about the off-year elections in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race in April or in Virginia in November. I'm not even thinking about that. I am thinking about right now in Washington, D.C. and about how much farther they're going to be able to go with what does feel like an attempt to blitzkrieg right through the law to abolish the constitutional republic and impose a new form of government in which they don't intend to abide opposition of any kind or to ever leave power. That is what I think is going on. And you can plan that for years, you can even plan that for generations. But when you do it, you need to effectuate it quickly, which is what we are experiencing now and why the last month has been so insane. Because they are trying to go as far as they can, as fast as they can, because they know this moment is the time when they will be able to move the furthest, provided they can get there fast. The extent to which what they're doing can be slowed, the extent to which things can just be made more difficult for them, more annoying and uncomfortable for them, then the less far they'll be able to go. And the thing that slows them down, if we are being real, the thing that slows them down and makes things more difficult for them and more annoying and uncomfortable for them is resistance to what they're doing. Resistance of all kinds. And their own party, the Republican Party, is not the only thing that matters, but it is crucial. It's crucial on the negative side because Republicans do have their own political power to stop things or complain or ask questions or take action, particularly in Congress. They could do something if they wanted to, but also on the positive side, because when Republicans do enable them and nod along or even encourage them, well, then they are encouraged not only to go as fast as they like, but to go even farther than they might have planned. And so Republicans are not the end-all be-all in terms of what is going to happen to our country, but they are in a crucial and important position. And so, yeah, when we get a data dump like we got today with all these national polls that have been released in the last day or two, when most Americans who are opposed to this administration see numbers like these ones that just came out, I mean, what this says to you, if you're in that boat, it tells you you're not alone. The rest of the country sees what's going on too. They think essentially like you do about this guy. They are against not only him in general, they're against all his folks, and they're against everything he's trying to do. And if you are opposed to this administration, that may give you some courage, right? That may certainly change your feeling. You're not alone. Maybe that'll make it more likely that you'll go to that town hall, that you'll call your member of Congress or your senator. Maybe you'll go to that protest. Maybe you'll join an indivisible group. Maybe you'll do something you haven't already done because this buoys you a little bit. But on the other side, when Republicans see these same numbers, it may not make them feel good, but it may change the math for them. It may change their own raw political calculation of whether they are going to ever swallow hard and say something, or maybe even do something. Whether they might actually use their power to say no, at least on one thing. No, on this I'm not going along. We've got a story for you tonight on one Republican senator who got an absolute earful from her constituents last night, who appears, from reports of that town hall, appears to have found herself agreeing with what her constituents were telling her about how much damage Trump was doing to her state. That Republican senator, having spent last night that way, she got up this morning, went to work in Washington, and cast a vote against him. Right? That dynamic is real. He is unpopular. He is historically unpopular. He is the least popular president in the history of modern polling at this point in his presidency. The country does not like him. They do not like what he is doing. They do not like the people that he is putting in place. The more he talks about specific things he wants you to associate with him, the more the American public hates those things specifically. The more the country shows that, the better chance that Democrats will get stronger and faster and more bold in their opposition, and the better chance that Republicans might start to join them. It is that simple. There is no magic bullet. There's no shortcut in standing up for democracy. When you're standing up for democracy, you know what's in your toolkit? Oh, look, democracy. That's it. This is how it works. And the hardest part of it is the hardest part of it to build, the hardest part of it to get on your side is public opinion, right? But on this guy, we're only 1 month in, and public opinion is definitely already there on this guy in a way that no president has ever seen before. And that is really good for people who are opposed to him and people who are trying to construct a regime of opposition to him that includes all comers. Right? Public opinion is against him. That is irreplaceable and necessary and huge. And public opinion being against him, mark my words, is only going to get worse for him. Because, again, it's simple. Look at what he's doing. Just look at these headlines from the past 48 hours. Headline: Trump team plans deep cuts at office that funds recovery from big disasters. The Trump administration plans to all but eliminate the office that oversees America's recovery from the largest disasters, raising questions about how the United States will rebuild from hurricanes, wildfires, and other calamities. The administration plans to cut the staff of that office by 84%. Headline: Trump administration cancels federal contract for 9/11 research. Headline: Trump administration cuts 9/11 survivors fund. Republicans join Democrats in rebuke. Headline: long lines and canceled rentals. Firings bring chaos to national parks. Quote, at Yosemite on Friday, the Trump administration fired the only locksmith on staff. He was the sole employee with the keys and institutional knowledge needed to rescue visitors from locked restrooms. The wait to enter Arizona's Grand Canyon National Park this past weekend was twice as long as usual after the administration let go 4 employees who worked at the south entrance, where roughly 90% of the park's nearly 5 million annual visitors pass through. At Gettysburg National Military Park in Pennsylvania, last week's widespread layoffs gutted the team that manages reservations for renting historic farmhouses. Visitors received notifications that their reservations have been canceled indefinitely. Here's a popular one: deep cuts to the Center for Alzheimer's and Related Dementias at the National Institutes of Health. This is a research center that is actually named for a Republican senator. Its full name is the Roy Blunt Center for Alzheimer's and Related Dementias. Donald Trump is gutting that. That's going to be a really popular cut because obviously that's a lot of waste, right? Research to try to cure Alzheimer's. Who wants that? Well done, President Trump, getting rid of all that waste. What do people with Alzheimer's contribute anyway, right? Who cares? Have you ever had any trouble getting in touch with the IRS when you needed to? Have you ever needed, or like getting something from the IRS website or like calling into their call center, using their chatbot or anything? Have you ever needed help from the IRS, needed a form? Maybe you needed some instructions on how to file something. Have you ever called in to one of those helplines? Because it is tax season now. And today the IRS fired nearly 7,000 people who work at the IRS. So this year, over these next few weeks, if you have any problems, any glitches, any delays, any trouble getting through, thank you, Donald Trump. Headline: FAA fires hundreds of workers, sparking concerns about air safety. Americans have been clamoring for that. Headline, Trump dismantled government fight against foreign influence operations. Oh, good. They just sent out notice, the government just sent out notice tonight that telehealth appointments aren't going to be covered anymore on Medicare. Oh, good. Everybody's clamoring for that. Already this kind of thing, the way they're running the government is creating what Politico.com tonight calls private Republican panic over the fact that Republicans in Congress are being, quote, inundated with calls from frantic constituents. Yes, I bet they are. And that is set to get worse, not better for them, unless they can get him to stop at least some of what he's doing. He started off a month ago historically unpopular. Now, 1 month in, his poll numbers are even worse. And just bear with me a second. Just take a quick look at just a sampling of what local news coverage is like right now in our country. And tell me if you think, from looking at local news, you think the public is going to start liking him any better given what he is doing.
Federal funding that has been frozen by President Trump.
The commissioner says not having access to critical funds is causing economic hardship for Maine farmers.
Federal cuts hit the Bonneville Power Administration the hardest. They lost about 20% of their workforce.
Nonprofits in Michigan are trying to survive a stop work order issued by President Trump.
This is a team that services some of the most at-risk youth in the Bay Area.
It's a lot of young people who are particularly vulnerable, who have been abused, exploited.
Yesterday, they got a notice from the federal government to stop work on their contract to provide legal services to their young clients.
What could a mass federal layoff mean for local forecasting for all of us?
We've got cold weather advisories.
NBC5 Storm Team starts many mornings with thorough forecasts to help you plan your day. And most of the data they share comes from scientists and meteorologists here at the National Weather Service in suburban Romeoville. Concern is growing that job cuts could be coming and what that would mean for local forecasting.
The information depends upon having the people in place. This is not something happening in Washington. It's your neighbors.
It's your neighbors. That's what local news looks like, a little slice of it, just today. I really think that they are trying to make it so the laws of politics no longer apply because we no longer have politics, right? So the public hating what they're doing will no longer matter because they don't intend to ever have to answer to the public ever again. I think that is ultimately what they are aiming at. But that's what they're aiming at. It doesn't mean we're there yet. And right now, in our time, today, the unpopularity of what they're doing really does create real political pressure at the source to stop it, to at least slow them down. And on that, we've got much more to come tonight. Stay with us.